Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called Open Your Channel to the Spirit World, how to receive a personal message from a departed loved one to experience healing and reconnection. My name is Stephen Dunn. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm delighted to be with you here, getting to explore how we connect with the spirit world. This is something that has been a long time interest in every spiritual tradition. Now we've gotten a lot more sophisticated about how to go about that process. And one of the people who's really leading the way forward and is quite renowned is Marianne Kennedy, who is our featured teacher today. She's a spiritual psychic medium, author, and spiritual educator, and she's been doing this work for quite some time and has got some very fascinating insights. And if you like what you hear today, we have a brand new course with Marianne that's coming up. It's called Become a Clear Channel for Spirit, a practical framework for confidently receiving, interpreting, and delivering messages from beyond. So more to come, and we'll share more about that towards the end of the hour if you want to go further. So Marianne, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, let's dive in with a little bit about first your backstory and what led you to this work as a medium and to really see the importance and value of this.
Oh, sure. That's a good and big question. I came to mediumship actually out of loss. And in my work as a medium, I found probably about half of the folks that I work with in teaching mediumship came to the practice through personal loss themselves. And that captures the truth for me as well. When I was young, I had a meditation practice, but I definitely wasn't born a medium. I didn't wake up in the middle of the night and see people who had passed. That just wasn't my experience. And even when I was young with a spiritual practice, 10, 12 years old, I had no interest in mediumship per se. And that interest only came about after I lost my dad. He passed from cancer. And after he was gone, I started to have really big questions. And I took everything I ever believed in and threw it aside. And after he was gone, belief just wasn't enough for me. I wanted answers, real answers. I wanted to know the truth. And I didn't want to just believe in an idea or a theory or a concept. So out of that loss, I started my search. And I was looking for direct experience with spirit. My questions were things along the lines of, do we still exist? And if we do still exist, where are we? What are we doing? Are we okay? If we do exist and we are somewhere and we are okay, how can I find that out? And how do they make contact with us if they are still real? And so all of these big questions that I had led me on a pretty extraordinary journey of learning and insight. And like I said, the intention was to come to know what is the truth of a soul after physical departure? What happens? And
Mm,
so that's what brought me to the practice of studying and learning mediumship. And for me, as a medium and a learning medium at the time, it came to me pretty quickly. I would say, in comparison to other folks that might have been learning around me, I got pretty good pretty quickly. But I always account that to the fact that when I was really young, I learned to meditate. When I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I could be in the middle of a soccer field at school and be off on my own journey. And so part of the process of being able to receive spirit is to be able to be quiet. And so it was really easy for me in comparison to other adults learning mediumship to be quiet and to receive spirit. So that was sort of my approach that worked very well in comparison to some others on the journey. And I was really grateful for that at the time because I thought, geez, that happened really quickly for me. But, some years later, after doing practice and working as a professional, I wrote my first book and I started teaching. I always felt in mediumship that everything that I had learned, everything that I had experienced was not my information to hold. I always felt like it was my information to share. And, that's not true for all mediums. For a lot of folks, this is their personal interaction and connection to spirit, and it's not part of their pathway to share the protocol, the process of getting there with other folks. But I never felt like that. I always felt like I needed to share. And a lot of what I learned was for me. But over the years, of course, I've learned that so much, if not all that I've learned, is so much for other people and less about me.
mm,
But of course, I had to have my own personal experience with this truth first, and so that was my process, and that sort of led me to teaching, and here I am, having taught so many students over the years to become professionals themselves, and for other folks, just to bridge the gap for them, to make contact, make connection for themselves, between themselves and their own people and spirit, because that was my motivation to begin with. It was really never about teaching or even communicating with folks that I didn't know on the other side. My intention was to connect with my dad, and then it grew so significantly, so exponentially from there.
mm. Well, thank you for taking that journey and then sharing the fruits with us today. So when you first started to explore this connection with the other side, I wonder what kind of things really convinced you that that this was real, that this was real evidence, real communication, to sort of give, that sense of like solid grounding for you.
It's a great question, and I'm gonna begin answering that by saying I am naturally a very left-brained person. I have a bachelor's degree in environmental studies, and I'm very oriented around science. And so data, proof, repeatable proof was always really, I mean, that was the top for me. I had to experience that. And so for me, my first experience sitting with a professional medium, I was blown away because I thought, from a statistical perspective, all of this information can't have been made up and made sense to me to the degree that it did. And as I continued my journey as initially a student medium, reading for someone that I didn't know at all, I knew nothing about them, I knew nothing about their people in spirit, and to be able to deliver information that was validated at such a high degree of accuracy, again, presented to me this possibility that this is very real, that this is not being made up. I could play around and make 15 things up. And maybe two or three of those things would make sense if I really did make it up. But in real life contact with the spirit world, real connection, real meaningful contact, your accuracy, certainly as a professional, it far exceeds what anyone could guess to be correct in that amount of time. So my real moments of impact that suggested, continuity of the soul is real after physical death really came in the presentation of proof, both as myself being a receiver of that information from another medium and also being the presenter of that information eventually to other strangers that I didn't know.
Mm. Well, I appreciate that scientific orientation. I share some of that background. And so you've got this sort of body of evidence and this proof, and you had also sort of said you were very interested in just exploring the nature of the afterlife and what was happening. And so I wonder if you want to share anything that was surprising to you about that as we get into the next step of like really talking about how to build that bridge of communication for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so innumerable. I really can't recount all of the, fascinating discoveries along the way in the spiritual journey. But, one of the most powerful that comes up as a medium working as a professional is, of course, the idea that we pre-plan the majority of what we experience in a life. And it can be really difficult to believe that, to take it in, especially when we've lost someone through means of tragedy, unexpected departures, very young passings, difficult experiences in that sense. And so that discovery for myself was really pivotal to understand that I wasn't a victim of loss. And that was important for me. I understood that my dad's journey was his journey because that was his soul's decision, because there was a necessity from a soul perspective to have the experience he did. And that linked, him to my soul and my soul's requirement to experience the loss the way that I did. It was many years later that I discovered the gift in loss. And not everyone will, and that's okay. But I certainly did. I discovered the gift in loss, and I realized it when all the pieces come into play, where I discover all of the experiences I've had with spirit, the healing that I've experienced, and because of that, all of the folks that I've connected with to help them on their own journey of loss, their own journey of discovery. And the leaping off point for that was my dad's departure from the physical world. I
Mhm.
mean, I think of all of the folks over the years who have communicated with me after a reading or after a workshop or after an event, and they say, I couldn't believe what was said. This has radically changed my life right now from here on out. And I take all of those experiences that have been shared with me and I link it backwards in time to this moment of profound loss. And throughout the deepest despair and the deepest pain has come so much healing and so much growth, so far beyond me that the experience of loss for me has left me in a deep state of gratitude for so many years. And
Mm.
that's incredibly profound for me.
It is a very big pivot to see the pre-planning of things that might be very painful or challenging as like part of our curriculum that we might choose. And so, how do you broach that in a reading? It's sort of like because it seems like it could be tender or people could be like reactive sometimes to like the idea that some things in their life that might have been very hard were part of the design.
Yeah. Well, in the context of a reading, when I'm giving a mediumship reading, it's not really me speaking. So if that conversation comes up in a reading, it's because spirit is leading the way. And I always trust that if talking about a pre-birth plan, if talking about, leaving the physical world really doesn't happen by accident, even when it appears that it is an accident, um, I trust that if that's coming up in conversation, it's because the person I'm speaking to is either ready now to hear it or requires a seed to be planted for later discovery. And so it's never my intention in a mediumship reading to deliver wisdom and guidance for someone that isn't led by their spirit person specifically. So it's not a common occurrence that when this becomes part of a conversation in a reading, that someone isn't in a space to be able to receive the conversation. And that's because spirit knows whether this is an appropriate time to talk about this or not. And they tend to know pretty well if the timing is good or the timing isn't good. But I certainly understand that there are points in, the experience of loss where we may or may not be open or ready. And even if it's not ready, maybe we're just not aligned with the possibility that we choose our exit points. And that's okay. Everyone has to have their own space, their own belief, and what they feel aligned with. And it's important, just like for me in my spiritual journey, it was important that I wasn't doing vicarious learning, where someone was telling me something they experienced or something they believed, and I would swallow that and take it dogmatically as truth for myself. That's important to not do that. And so I feel the same about other folks. Experiences that I have had that substantiate what truth is to me is different from what other people have experienced. And it's important that you find your own pathway and you align with truths that, one, either feel correct and right for you, or that you have direct experience with that says to you, hey, this is real. So, sort of to wrap up that answer, it's that if someone's not ready for a conversation or doesn't align with that reality, I don't have those conversations with them because
Hmm.
spirit doesn't put us in that situation.
So spirit has the sensitivity to the whether things can be received. So it's a
Yeah.
beautiful answer. So let's talk a little bit about the sort of the establishing of contact and maybe starting with like, how do you know, first of all, that there are souls on their side that are interested in making that contact?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of folks have it. One of the first ways that spirit people try to make contact with their loved ones here is through signs and symbols. And signs and symbols is meaningful contact with spirit. It's not mediumship per se, but it's their way of letting you know that they're around. And signs and symbols can show up in many forms. Some are so unique and specific to you and the person that you've lost. And other times, there are very common ones that spirit have access to very easily. For example, birds, butterflies, beautiful aspects of nature that spirit in their non-form reality can connect with, influence, ask favors for, show a butterfly landing on your shoulder at a really important moment. Um, Other times it's, technology comes into play. So, have you ever had an experience where you were thinking about someone you may have lost and suddenly a song comes on the radio that connects you to them? You say, oh my gosh, this is the memory. I know this is them making contact with me. Other times it's, we can have signs like dimes in very unusual places. I remember, I mean, I have so many over the years, but one I remember in particular, I had a client who'd lost her son, and they were in the process of selling their family home that her son had grown up in. And it was a difficult time in preparing the home because there, in some ways, feels like you have a loss of memories or we're moving away from a place that was really sacred in the family. And she was preparing for a showing, and she had swept, vacuumed, and mopped. Okay, a hallway in the leading to all the bedrooms, and had completed all that, showered and gotten ready, and went back into the hallway. And right in the middle of the hallway, on the floor, hardwood floor, is a dime sitting there. She picked up the dime, and the dime was the year of her son's birth. And you just can't make that up. How did that show up there after we had done all of these things? It was a critical time because it was difficult emotionally. And that was her son's way of letting her know that he was there, not only there, but more importantly, supporting what the choice was, which was to, and in the long run, it really proved to be a good move for the family. But that this was an okay thing to do, that he was there. And not only that he was there at that time, but that he would be going with her wherever she was. Leaving him behind wasn't something that was really going to happen.
Fascinating story and really powerful. So let's talk about the next stage of the process. So now that you know that there's a sign or signal that there's is this openness or readiness, like how do you go about the establishing of contact and opening the channel to for this kind of work?
Yeah, and there's two sort of ways to approach that. We can approach it from the perspective of wanting to become a medium. And if we want to become a medium, we do have to participate in learning processes, which is a lot about the things we'll be talking about in the course upcoming and a little bit later today in our interview as well. But as a person who maybe doesn't necessarily have a desire to become a medium, but you want to have meaningful contact with your loved one, with someone that you have lost. And the most significant way that you can become an open channel to make that contact happen is through a meditative experience. Some folks are really lucky and they have very meaningful contact with their loved ones in spirit through dreams. But the thing about dreaming is that it happens at random, that you would have an experience, a very real, profound moment with your spirit person through a dream. Through intention, you can't create that experience. Try as you might. It doesn't happen that way. So it's important that if we want to establish or reconnect or reaffirm relationship with family that we've lost, that we are able to do that through intention, that we have some control over that contact. And we do. You just have to know how to do that. And so the place that you go to is in a meditative state. It's a space of no mind. It's a space of absence of your thoughts. It's a space of clarity that, in fact, when you're dreaming or in sleep state, you are accessing that, but not through intention. It happens however it's going to happen. But through meditation, you can create a space that is sacred, real, and holy where you have contact and an invitation and a reunion with your loved one on the other side.
Hmm. So is that what else helps you in that creating that clear space? So is there a kind of specific protocol you follow to sort of for grounding, for opening, for clearing the space? I'd love to just have a little bit of insight into how you optimize that channel.
Sure, absolutely. So, in the context of, being a medium or practicing mediumship, there is a whole priming process of your energy before you connect with spirit and invite them into your energy. But as an ordinary person who's wanting to make contact with their own loved one, there's, a very basic priming process of deep relaxation that occurs before a meditation happens. I always encourage folks to work in guided meditation if you're not an experienced meditator. It can be really difficult to access this deep state of relaxation and this deep state of emptiness in your own mind that allows you to recognize spirit. We clutter our own minds so significantly, whether it's through thoughts about now, future, past, hyper awareness in the now. It's important to be able to establish the baseline of, this is me today. Today I have a little bit of fatigue. Today I might have a headache. Today I might be really energetic. It's important that we know what's us before we access this meditative state so that we can recognize anything outside of that is what is coming from spirit.
Hmm. Makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about once the communication is open or established, is there a certain kind of unfolding of that process of relational building and evidence that are, exchanged that you find is most helpful, or is it just all kind of spontaneously guided?
It is not spontaneously guided. Now, in saying that, it's not spontaneously guided in the context of meaningful communication that is mediumship, which is demonstration of the continuity of spirit or soul beyond physical death. In the context of being an ordinary person, having a real experience with a loved one that you've lost, no, there's no process. There's no control. There's no linear fashion of moving through the beginning of the meeting to an end of a meeting. No, it doesn't happen like that. And it really ought not to happen like that because the goal of a spirit contact with your own person isn't to demonstrate continuity. Your spirit person can't talk about proof to you because you already know them. You know everything about them or most things about them. And so it's not a presentation of evidence from spirit when we are sitting with our own loved one on the other side. This is about having an experience of communication, allowing them to communicate to you what it is that they want to share in terms of a message. It's allowing you to feel like you can relay a message to them. Because what most folks don't know is that spirit people, your family on the other side, your loved ones, they hear you. They don't need to be in a sacred space to understand, know, hear, feel what's happening for you and what you're saying to them. But you do need to access that space to hear them back. And so, in the context of a private connection with your own person, no, there's no process to follow. It is really just open to whatever is going to happen. And whatever's going to happen is always going to be what needs to happen.
Hmm. That's a beautiful quality of trust to have. Or are there other kind of principles or qualities of trust like that that you really find are key to having the whole experience optimized for you and for the sitter and for the soul on the other side?
Yeah, absolutely. In the context of mediumship, which so just so we're clear, right? We have two forms of contact with spirit. We maybe not forms, but two intentions. One could be just making contact with someone who's important to us, and the other would be making contact with the spirit that we don't know. And our role or our job in that moment is to present evidence from them to their sitter, to the person here in the physical world, that demonstrates it is them. It illustrates them, demonstrates their continuity after physical death. And so readings always take two phases. And the first part of it is the evidence phase.
Hmm.
And so, and the second part of it is messaging. So it's allowing spirit that same space that we talked about earlier to say what they want to say, to relay messages they want to relay, insights of importance that would be helpful to someone here in the physical world. But it is important to follow the process in mediumship, to spend a lot of time in the evidence phase and, comparatively speaking, less time in a messaging phase. Why is that? Messages that may or may not be relevant to someone here in the physical world in that moment, they hold very little weight in the context of mediumship unless the person relaying those messages from the spirit world has been adequately represented. That is to say, the message has so much more power when the person receiving it knows that it's coming from dad, it's coming from mom, it's coming from sister. And so the evidence phase is all important. And so following that process is extremely important. And we can break those two phases or those two aspects of a reading down even further. The evidence phase has its own process within it. The messaging phase has its own process within it. So mediumship really needs to be anatomized and understood on all levels, to really put together the most powerful and potent reading possible. And that really is the goal. The goal is to demonstrate continuity and to relay messages. And so to do that, it is an all-encompassing process. And it's one that needs to be honored in terms of the time it takes to learn it.
Well, I love the depth and the rigor that you approach this with. So it's really wonderful to receive what you're sharing. And I know you want to also take us into a bit of an experiential here as well today. So I think now would be a great time if you want to do that.
Super. So we are going to be exploring just what we were speaking about, a private personal meditation, creating a space for you to connect with a loved one that you have lost. So we'll just get started on that. And the first thing that we'll start with is I'd like everyone to just relax. Find a comfortable position, sitting where you are or laying down where you are. And I want you now to take a long breath, breathing in total relaxation. Close your eyes. Imagine a soft beam of light shining down on you. You can feel the light flowing over your body, from the top of your head down to your toes. The warm light relaxes you, washing away any stress, any worry. As the light flows over your forehead and then your eyes, it removes all tension. Relax your brow. Your cheeks relax, and then your jaw. All the muscles in your face are now relaxed. The light travels down your shoulders and your arms as you relax even more. Let your stomach soften. Your thighs lose all tension, and now your calves, your feet, and your toes sink into the ground. You are surrounded in heavenly light. Your mind and your body are now totally relaxed and peaceful. Imagine now that you're walking down a beautiful path in nature. The breeze is warm. Trees arch over you and sway gently in the wind. The sun is shining above. creating a glow throughout the forest. You feel comfortable. You can smell the flowers. You see butterflies fluttering around you. As you walk along this peaceful path and relax even deeper, you allow any lingering thoughts to just float away. And now you don't have a care in the world. Walking down the path, you notice a white bench up ahead of you. Slowly make your way towards it. As you approach the bench, you see there are plush pillows just for you. Go and sit down now. You feel completely safe and at home here. Just now, I'd like you to think of a loved one you would like to visit with. Say their name in your own mind. Remember the bond you share and feel your love for them. Open your heart. Ask them to come and visit with you. Say their name again. Invite them in. As you gaze down the path you've just come from, you see a form walking towards you. The form becomes a light. And as the light gets closer to you, you begin to feel your loved one's love for you. You feel the connection you share. And as the light approaches even closer, you begin to see them a little clearer. Their face comes into view. You can see their eyes, and now their smile. Ask them to come closer. Come and sit with you. Your loved one is here, and they sit down next to you on the bench. Reach your hands forward. Embrace their hands. You are grateful they've made this journey to connect with you, and they are so happy to see you. You feel absolute peace and love in their presence. Just now, you look down and you notice your loved one is holding something. They've brought you a gift. The gift is a short letter they've written to you to transmit a message they want to send your way. Open your hands and receive this gift from them. Now open the letter. You have a few moments now to read what they've written. Now that you've received your gift, thank your loved one for writing to you and for visiting you today. Embrace them. Give them a hug. Tell them you look forward to meeting them again in this sacred place. Just now, you see your loved one slowly stand up. They begin to walk back down the path, and you watch until they've faded from your view. You know in your heart they are never very far away, and you feel such gratitude for this visit and the gift you have received. You slowly get up from the bench and you begin to walk down that path. Know that this space is yours and you can visit here anytime you wish. You will remember all the details of this visit, and your heart is filled with their love for you. When you're ready, begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes and come back to the room.
Well, thank you. I'm sure everybody's has their own tender, sweet connections and other illuminating things that are coming up, but maybe you can share a little bit about how best to work with whatever emerged.
I always say when you have an experience with spirit and you receive a message, write it down. Sometimes the message is requiring no interpretation. It is written in sentence format and you understand it very clearly. And other times, something about it resonates really deeply, but we can't quite put our finger on it just yet. And so, for that reason, I say to write it down because Spirit is here to provide insight, healing, and help for us. And sometimes the most help we need isn't happening right in the now, and it's for a future date. So, write it down and reflect on it, and know that the power of the message is in your ability to understand how it can help you, because that is the intention of spirit. It is to help.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, maybe you could share a little bit about how to sort of nurture that connection ongoing too. Like, so do you recommend doing regular connections or visitations, or is it often enough to just have like one meditation or session that sort of creates that bridge or completion?
No, I absolutely recommend doing this as often as possible. And it's really important to, have had a guided experience to find your way to your sacred place. This space is in your heart and it's in your mind. It's accessible to you with or without someone guiding you there. But it's often helpful, as in the meditation today, to have a map to follow to begin with. So if you've listened to this meditation today, you are welcome to follow your same roadmap, get you to the same place again. Contact and relationships, whether it's from the form world to the spirit world or the form world to the form world, they develop the more we have contact, experience, and interaction with one another. So, to build your connection even more strongly, more profoundly, more meaningfully with someone that you've lost on the other side, meet with them in a place like this often. Allow space for that in your life. Following an encounter with spirit, and some of you may be experiencing that right now, following an encounter with spirit leaves you in a space of bliss, peace. The mind is staying in the quiet space for much longer. It is a healing experience with or without a message. It's a healing experience for those here. So, absolutely cultivate your contact through meditation as often as you need to.
Hmm. Beautiful. I want to ask also, we've talked a little bit about people who are just personally interested and people who are more professionally interested, but on the professional side, just what are the other foundational things that you really find are important if you're going to sort of move towards this eventually as an offering that you make to others?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things, I mean, there is so much, but the biggest things outside of foundational learning, and so understanding the spirit world, spirits, how we make contact with them, how they communicate with us, how to be the best and clearest channels. Beyond all of the foundational learning, which takes a good amount of time to be fluent in, the most important part of mediumship development is practice, and not just any practice. What's really important is audited practice. So, like anything, we can develop and learn any skill, any ability we want. And the more we practice it, the better we are. But it's also true that you can have poor practice. We can have a technique in tennis or in horseback riding, and we can have done that for many years, but have been employing poor techniques, and we never really get all that much better. And so it's important that you have good guidance. Audited readings take place in development circles. Development circles are they are the groundwork that has to take place to become a powerful, accurate, connected medium. And why do I bring that up? Because a lot of folks, enjoy foundational learning. And in theory, you understand how mediumship works, and you may have had experiences within the context of singular workshops. But mediumship needs to be practiced so significantly and repeatedly over and over and over again. I always say to students who come and work with me in development circles, you could expect to spend probably a year in mediumship practice outside of foundational learning, because so much of what you learn from spirit happens through direct experience. You can't understand and build a dictionary, for example, to understand how spirit communicates symbolically until you have been shown by spirit the same message over and over and over again, and through trial and error understood what that symbol actually meant. And so, that's the most important part, besides foundational learning, which is also important, is that you practice. And that means that mediumship is a slow unfoldment.
Mm.
You can become really good really quickly, but to be sustainably good takes a long unfoldment, and that time frame is different for everyone. But at a minimum, in being in a development circle and learning for at least a year, that would be a time frame where someone is going to get to the point in their mediumship, if they've done it regularly and their practice has been good practice, they can get to a point at that time where they can easily be able to very accurately and reliably give readings and deliver messages to folks that they don't know for those people's own process of healing.
Hmm. A lot of deep wisdom what you shared. So I think this is a good moment to talk a little bit about your upcoming course now, which is a great opportunity to learn from you and all you've learned in your many years of teaching this work. So let's talk about that. So Marianne has agreed to teach a brand new course for Shift. It's called Become a Clear Channel for Spirit, a practical framework for confidently receiving, interpreting, and delivering messages from beyond. You can find it at the URL clearchannelframework.com, clearchannelframework.com. It's a 7-week program and really is going to set some of the foundations, not all of the practice, obviously, but it's going to set some key foundations for how you can start to develop this work. So, Marianne, I'd love for you to share in your own words some of your intentions for what people will come away with, and let's go through the modules.
Absolutely. My intentions for this course, of course, there are so many, but primarily, my intention for this course is to bring control to the medium. And so I found over the years of teaching so many students mediumship that if we approach the process from disorder or no order and random receivership, it becomes really difficult to very reliably illustrate a spirit person who has passed. It is so important. I call it being a control as a medium. It's so important to maintain control position as a medium. And we maintain control position by working with what I call my framework. And it's a series of specific questions that happen in a specific order that very reliably, as a medium, allows you to build your connection to a spirit person throughout the course of a reading in such a way that your evidence is presented in a clear manner that's easy to understand. It follows a process. It follows the process of what I think of as a drawing. As an artist, when they're drawing a face, they tend to begin in the same anatomical feature and build themselves out until they have the picture that illustrates what it is that represents the entirety of what they are intending to draw. And the same idea relates and can overlay across the mediumship process. And this is what my framework is. So I meet a lot of mediums that are very gifted, very open, very available. They can make contact very easily. But oftentimes, what happens is that the information that is received by the medium, because it isn't received in any particular order and it isn't presented in a particular order, the medium struggles with delivering the evidence, and the sitter struggles with understanding the information that's coming through because it seems to be presented at random and without context. And so, my intention of this course predominantly is to be able to give the student of mediumship order, control, and discipline for the purposes of becoming an incredibly accurate medium.
Hmm.
And the unique thing about this course, which I'm really excited about, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, Stephen, is this course really combines both foundational learning and practice. And
Hmm.
so, really excited to be able to have a course where I'm going to introduce foundational learnings or build upon what folks already know and invite you to look at mediumship as a process and a concept in maybe a little bit of a different way than you might have thought before. And also give the opportunity to take that information, to take the guideposts that I'll be presenting and integrate them into your process right there in class with me. And
Hmm.
that's sort of the constitution of having an audited reading where you have live feedback in the moment. And if not live feedback, follow up feedback so that you can understand what out of what just happened was really easy learning for me, and what out of what just happened contained learning that I can't spot. And I need someone else to help me with that. And so I'm excited to have a sort of dual approach in this course.
Exciting. So, module one goes into cultivate a sense of readiness and clarity in your mediumship practice.
Yeah, so it's important when we are the outset of a mediumship journey that we're able to identify if we have any personal material that sort of can get in the way of our ability to receive spirit. This might sound strange, but some folks are scared of the idea of making contact with the other side. And if there is something that we are afraid of, we need to be able to replace the fear with education and information. And so it's important, as an example, if that were someone's mindset going into the development of mediumship, that there's something they might be afraid of, then we need to be able to identify it so that we can evolve out of that thinking and shift out of that vibration of fear into a space of either trust, love, or surrender to a process. Other times, some of the things that can get in our way as mediums to be able to be clear channels is some of our personal practices. For example, things like extreme fatigue or not having good sleep practices, or sometimes having really limiting beliefs about ourselves, about others. All of those thoughts, ideas, and practices that we hold in life, they represent our vibration, they represent our consciousness. And we have to be able to be in some state of healthy vibration in order to allow spirit into our field. When we communicate with spirit, they merge with us, they blend with our energy. And that means that our vibration has to be a similar match to theirs. And it doesn't have to be identical. But when we are overloaded with things like low vibration thinking, low vibration health practices, life practices. It's not a space of judgment. It's to be able to recognize where we're at, understand what needs to be done to evolve out or into a slightly different space to become a better, more available conduit to spirit. All of those things are really important to identify at the outset so that we can deal with them and move forward.
Module two, access the field to discover how you receive from spirit.
As mediums, we all receive differently. And so we all use the clair senses. So we see something, feel something, hear something, know something from spirit. Those are the psychic abilities that actually take place within the process of mediumship. But I always encourage folks to be able to access information psychically first, outside of using those skills to make contact with spirit. So, what does this mean? We have to be able to identify one, how we come into awareness of non-form information. And so some of the practices that I like to introduce are psychic practices like psychometry or tuning into someone else's energy field or your own energy field, non-form information that needs to be understood by our own minds. And so we do that in module two by exploring psychic exercises to understand what is your predominant clair. Do you see most easily non-form? Do you feel, do you hear, do you know? Is it a combination of all of those things? And then some practices to help elevate or boost those skills because they translate into mediumship.
Module three, establish contact with a spirit person using the principles of evidential mediumship.
I always introduce students to spirit in the context of mediumship learning, first to a loved one that they know themselves. I always like to have a space that's created that automatically contains trust and love, because it's important as a medium to be able to hold that vibration when we're communicating with spirit. And so introducing folks first to their own loved ones in spirit, similar to the experience we had today, and then moving from that into making contact. It's a very similar approach, but now with someone you don't know on the other side, and beginning the process of the framework, beginning the process of ascertaining evidential information from the spirit person to illustrate their existence.
Module 4, become fluent in the language of spirit with Marianne's framework.
The framework, as I've mentioned, is a very specific series of questions. They represent the spine of a book. They represent the absolute necessary information to reliably illustrate a spirit person. But moving through the framework all at once is overwhelming. So it's important to approach each section of the framework in a very planned and calculated way so that the information we receive back as the control position, asking questions of spirit people, we have the time to understand context and also interpretation of information that comes through.
Module 5, effectively translate healing messages from the spirit world to the physical world.
Spirit is here not to make decisions for us. It's important that we understand foundationally why spirit steps forward so that we don't, as humans, misinterpret or distort messages. Now, as a medium for so many years in my life, I have seen distorted messages delivered so frequently. And it's not that any medium has the intention to distort messages or, not encompass or relay what's really being sent to them. It's just that you have to have an understanding and a development of the nature of spirit, and you have to be able to foundation that nature beneath all messages that are relayed from spirit. And so, in order to do that, we have to become very familiar and very experienced with hearing, understanding, and translating messages from the other side so that what we deliver captures the initial intent of the spirit person.
Module 6, advance your abilities with the essential skills of platform and gallery medium.
Hmm. Gallery mediumship is like nothing else. So, platform mediumship gives the medium an ability to demonstrate continuity of the soul to many, many people all at once. And it's truly a gift. And the internal process as a medium is the same, whether you are delivering a reading one to one or you're delivering a gallery or with a group. But the presentation is quite different. It's a totally different technique that you need to learn before you can be an enjoyable, accurate, and well presented medium in the context of being on a stage.
Module 7, perform a full-length mediumship reading with Marianne's framework.
Our week 7 is the coming together of all prior weeks. We've taken all the sections of our framework that we've been building, understanding context, understanding symbolic versus literal communication from spirit, understanding how to build the connection through the course of a reading. So now we are going from question 1 in the framework to the final question to the message at the end of a reading, which is how we close off readings in a one-to-one setting. So this is really the coming together of everything we've learned in the prior weeks to create a full evidential mediumship reading for a total stranger.
Hmm. Well, what a fascinating program. There's clearly a lot of detailed understanding that is really been based on so much experience and really helps to get to the core of how to make mediumship readings really successful and transformational. So again, there's more detail on this whole program at clearchannelframework.com, clearchannelframework.com. As we said, it's a 7-week program, and you will get those 7 live modules. You also have time in those modules to ask your questions live and do interactive practices together. And you'll also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly practices for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that Marianne has been generous in providing. There's a digital guide called Divine Methodology, first of all. Want to share more about Divine Methodology?
Absolutely. The divination methodology is something that, very experienced psychics and intuitives are familiar with but not necessarily having learned it in a formal way. We've just discovered over time how to do this. But in my work, of course, I've discovered that there are many folks that don't know how to access information psychically and intuitively using tools. And so in the divination methodology bonus material, I've put together the process for you to follow to be able to use any of the tools that you would like in your psychic or intuitive practice to be able to access information and insight from the universe.
Great bonus. And there's a second bonus that's called the Empowered Cord Cutting. This is a digital guide from Marianne. You want to share more about why that's a valuable bonus as well?
Absolutely. We all have corded attachments to things, people, places, experiences, objects in the now and from the past, and sometimes even from past lives. So we have threads of connection to all kinds of things. And some of those things are not offering us beneficial energy in our experience now. And sometimes some of those cords of connection need to be released. And the empowered cord cutting is a process that I am offering as our bonus content to allow you to follow your own process to one, identify corded attachments and determine whether or not they are beneficial for you or not. And if the answer to that is no, I've given you a process to release yourself from that cord.
Hmm. Great extra bonus there. And then I also want to draw attention to one final bonus that is available just for those who sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. This is an excerpt from Advanced Mediumship, a masterful guide for the practicing medium, and it's called The Empath, the Psychic, and the Medium. You want to share more about that bonus that folks get today if they sign up early?
Absolutely. That's a chapter from my second book. It's a really powerful chapter. After both my books were published over time, I've just had so many emails from folks all over the world. And after Advanced Mediumship was released, that chapter was the title of so many emails of feedback from folks all over, where they really didn't understand that although they are all three of those things, they are a psychic, they are a medium, they are an empath, they didn't really understand that all three of those roles actually don't have a place in mediumship specifically. And why is that? You'll discover that in the chapter. But there are aspects to those who are extremely sensitive, like myself, and probably a lot of people that are listening, that we can't occupy or be active in when we are working in mediumship, simply because in order to receive spirit so significantly and clearly, we have to be at such a high vibration of energy. And some parts of being an empath, for example, can really plummet our vibration. And so, in the context of mediumship, we don't want to be in that role when we are giving a reading. So, more about that in the chapter.
Mm. Great chapter and clearly really important insights for doing this work well. So, what a beautiful offering this is, Marianne. It's really clear it's sourced from so much deep wisdom. I love that you have the kind of left brain scientific leaning too, so it kind of like helps to really systematize things and that can be rather fuzzy too. So there's a precision that helps it all land. So again, there's the whole program is laid out in detail at clearchannelframework.com, clearchannelframework.com. We've kept the investment very accessible. It's just three payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start May 6th and run Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. There's some great testimonials on the page from students and others who have experienced the power of Marianne's work. So you are in really good hands and you're getting to benefit from many decades of exploration and systemization and really being able to ground this work in a way that really is meaningful and gets results. So again, it's all at clearchannelframework.com, clearchannelframework.com, and you'll get that special chapter when you sign up by midnight tonight, which is the empath, the psychic, and the medium. So, Marianne, great hour. Really enjoyed our time with you. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the course?
Absolutely. I think it's important that if we are approaching mediumship with curiosity, certainly if we are approaching it with curiosity out of loss, that it is your right to maintain contact and connection to someone you've lost. And you don't need anyone's permission to do that. And if you feel a calling toward that, give yourself permission to experience it because it can be radically and often is radically life-changing. And for those who are already experiencing mediumship and want to develop further, an up level is always just one peak experience away. And that peak experience often includes looking at your practice from a different perspective. And elevating our mediumship is always the goal of any medium. And I invite you to become part of that process with me.
Hmm. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Marianne, for all your wisdom today. And thank you all for joining, and look forward to seeing many of you in Marianne's upcoming course. And again, the URL for that is clearchannelframework.com, and you'll get the empath, the psychic, and the medium excerpt when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much. Many blessings.
Thank you, Stephen.